Welcome to your new favorite podcast, Two Chicks with Hiking Sticks, with your hosts,
Monica.
Susan. Howdy, everybody. It's Two Chicks with Hiking Sticks.
I'm Monica.
I'm Susan, and we're coming to you from a different location, you might notice.
Yeah, we are in Fort Davis, Texas.
I like to call it we're out with nature.
Well, we're kind of out with nature. We're on a deck near nature.
We're near it. We're very near it.
We're very near it.
If you listen listen closely, you might hear a bird.
Lots of birds. And you hear traffic.
And you will definitely hear traffic.
Because cars are in nature, unfortunately.
Yes, they are. It's not like back in the day when we just had horse-drawn carriages.
That's right. Which would have been pretty loud, too, I think. I didn't ask for a sample, but okay. You know what we're doing today?
Okay, we're moving on.
We're moving on. You know what we're doing today? We're doing a trail mix.
Because why? Because I was hungry when we thought of the name. What? No.
No, because there's no trail mix for Susan. For her, it's just M&Ms, peanut M&Ms. There's no granola or peanuts or anything like. It's just the M&Ms.
Chocolate and M&M. I mean, what? It was so hard.
Trail mix is a mix, right? So here's what we're doing for y'all. As people go through and comment, ask questions, which is why we're encouraging you when you see our videos to comment, ask questions,
make
of the comments, and we're going to try to address some of those every few months, every few episodes, and just share some general info with you or insights that we had when we were visiting places.
Yeah, because sometimes you know how it is. You know, you think afterwards like, oh, I should have said, or I should have brought up, or this would have been helpful to know.
Right.
And again, this is why it's also driven off of your comments, things that you guys want to know, is that we want to make sure that we have a place that, a nice trail mix bag of stuff.
Yep. So this is trail mix number 1.
Trail mix number 1. Let's go. Okay, so one of the questions that came up was about having your pets. Can you, go hiking with your pets? And where can you go hiking with your pets?
Right.
And is that even allowed? And it's interesting because, I'm mostly a national park kind of gal. And as a national park kind of gal, generally speaking, there are no pets on trails. But it's not like there are never any pets on trails, because you can have some pets on some trails in some locations. And so it becomes a very locational thing. But there is a website that you can go to for National Park Service, which is like an nps.gov/subject/pets/visit. But we'll have that link in the information for this video. And it's a really good place to look at particular parks and understand what their policies are towards having pets. Now, if you're talking about something more statewide or citywide, they typically allow pets, leashed of course, on their trails. So again, it can still vary city by city, but generally think if it's local or city, you generally can have pets on trails or in your state. National trails, generally no.
Right. State parks, almost every state park I think that I've ever stayed at, when I had my RV and was going hiking, my dogs were with me.
Yeah.
And there was no issue with dogs. I mean, you definitely want to be kind and clean up after your pet.
Please.
Yes, nobody likes to walk near doggy poop. So make sure you take your bags. And the other thing to kind of look out for when you're at these parks, and we're sorry the wind is coming in and it's a little gusty. But one of the things you want to look out for is you want to know if there's going to be like ticks, a lot of mosquitoes, and also burrs. Burrs in areas like if you're walking off trail or any trails that are not paved or graveled or whatever, you're prone, of course, to getting burrs. But your poor pets, sometimes they'll get them, and you'll know immediately. We all know if you've had pets, because they're immediately lifting up the paw. But also ticks, you got to watch out for ticks. And I remember one time I was staying at Martin D's State Park up outside of Houston, and it had just rained, and the mosquitoes were atrocious. My poor boy, every time he'd lift his leg to pee, they would attack his poor little belly. Aww. So it kind of limits your hiking. It really does, or if you're going to hike, you put on your stuff and you go alone. Leave your dogs, in the RV, because poor things, it's a lot of stuff for them. But so you want to look out for stuff like that if you are going to go hiking with your pets.
Yeah, definitely. Because I'm a dog person, so I really want to make sure you take care of them and
yeah.
they don't get their little. But I was going to say something about the burrs. There was a question once about, what do you call those things? Burrs? Are they sticker burrs? What are they called? Stickers? What are they called?
I call them burrs.
I always call them sticker burrs.
Well, they are sticker burrs, but I guess burrs because they burr up in your whatever, your feet, your toes. God, I hate those things.
I do too. Okay,
So
so
annoying.
it is. So we love for people to be able to take their pets, but make sure you look ahead, read ahead, look at the websites that are for your park that you're going to go to. Make sure that they're allowed on trail, and or if not, leave them at home.
Yeah, definitely plan ahead.
Yeah, plan ahead. And then the other question that had come up about, because as we're all getting a little bit older, and it's like, maybe our mobility isn't as great, and maybe you're either in a boot or if you're in a wheelchair or, you need a walker. Accessibility in our parks, we've come so far, I think, in a lot of our parks about making them more accessible to folks. And in some of our parks, particularly like, Rocky Mountain National Park that we've covered, Padre Island that we've covered, there are resources and places for you to be able to get wheelchairs, for instance, or walkers for like the beach, or places that the national park or parks may be partnering with outside of the park, where you can go and get wheelchairs, for instance, to rent to be able to use on the trails. And in each one of the parks, at least in most of the parks that I go to, there are always some level of parks that are trails that are accessible. And so this is where, when you go to your parks and you talk to the rangers and what have you, you really want to kind of figure out what's available to you. And generally in every park, there's going to be some accessible path for you. Trail.
We try to be really diligent about listing phone numbers or where you would go.
Resources.
To get a sand accessible wheelchair, or at Rocky Mountain National Park, our video on that, blog post, on that we talked about where we put the phone number up on the blog of where to call. Mm-hmm. So we do try to be cognizant of that, and if we don't mention it on the video, it will be in the blog post if there's something special or somewhere special. And then, like Susan mentioned, almost every park has some kind of trail that's accessible, whether it's a nature trail or an interpretive trail that is accessible for people in wheelchairs, mm-hmm. or whatever kind of accessibility they may need. And I have also had gone to some parks that had the posts with Braille.
Oh yeah.
So there's a lots of different ways to access your park and to make sure that you get to it in a very accessible way. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's something we wanted to address.
Yeah.
I asked a question because we talked about, as Susan said, getting leafy. On our intro video, I talked about I had heard about a Japanese practice called forest bathing, and I didn't really know what it was called, and I was so impressed and so
amazed.
Well, no, not my brother is a very smart man, but I was surprised that he knew it, and he commented right away and told us that the practice of forest bathing in Japan is called Shinrin-yoku.
And there you go.
How he knew that, I don't know. He didn't know either, but I am impressed and thankful. And so I just very quickly wanted to talk about the Japanese practice of Shinrin-yoku, or forest bathing. And basically we did talk about that. It's just mm-hmm. kind of spending time in the forest, or as Susan said, getting leafy.
Getting leafy.
Getting leafy. In Japan, apparently, this is something that kind of started back in the 1980s. Believe it or not.
Everything good happened in the 80s.
Everything happened. All the good stuff happened.
All the good music
80s.
Was in the 80s.
Dr. King Lee, he's a MD, PhD at the Nippon, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, medical school in Tokyo, is the president of the Society of Forest Medicine and the author of Forest Bathing, How Trees Can Help You Find Health and Happiness.
I believe that.
Me too. He estimated that we spend about 93% of our time indoors, and basically calls it a nature deficit, because he found that if you can improve your health significantly by spending a few hours, especially among trees. Obviously getting outside and just breathing some fresh air, looking at, enjoying the sky, enjoying the sounds and nature, that's great. But there are some benefits to actually being around trees.
Yeah.
And so I'll just very quickly here: anxiety, depression, insomnia, Also assisting, and we talked about this in the intro episode, things like high blood pressure, your muscle tension, lowering immune response, all that stuff can be helped by spending some time in a forest. It sounds...
What is?
Yeah, it sounds new agey. I'm going to skip right over that. It sounds very new agey, but we all know that we feel better when we've been outside for a little bit.
It is true.
It's true.
I mean, for any of us that, do any amount of hiking, sometimes, you go out on a trail and it is raining. And there is nothing that wants to, you will not stop, because there's just still something good about being outside and being in the elements, and you don't care that it's raining, because there's something that's just fulfilling about it, and it just feels good.
Yeah. And believe it or not, in Japan, it's actually a prescribed practice. You can be prescribed forest bathing.
I like that.
I like it too.
I don't know if it'd be covered under my insurance here, but I like it.
And so that's not going to happen here. But if you look in your area and just do a search for forest bathing near me, you will probably find some place that has forest bathing sessions and people that lead those. San Antonio, actually, the Botanical Gardens actually has sessions every now and then. So yeah, you'll find something. And if not, then you don't need that. Just go outside. Get leafy.
Yeah, get leafy.
Get leafy.
Stand by any tree, any shrub,
That's
any
right.
greenery,
That's right.
anything. And then breathe deep.
Yep.
There you
and
go.
enjoy your time outside.
Yes. Okay. And so then one of the next things that we were, we referenced in some of our videos, and we really wanted to underscore this, and we thought it would be good to put in our little trail mix, was to talk about the rangers that are at the parks, right? Or national monuments, what have you. Whether they're national park rangers or they're state park rangers, I really want to encourage people to talk to them. When you go and arrive at any park, go inside, talk to a ranger. They are going to give you the lay of the land of everything. And these folks are pretty doggone educated.
Very educated. The two gentlemen that we spoke with yesterday at the Fort Davis National Historic Site, both of them were master's level historians. For me, a history, not hater, but it's not at the top of my list. But for someone like me, that is a valuable resource, really valuable resource. And for someone like Susan, who really likes that stuff, it's even more clarification and more, what's the word I'm thinking of? It's just, it provides her with like more, she wants to know more, and it makes her think of other questions. And these poor guys, I kind of felt for them, but
They seem to be smiling at me. I thought it wasn't a wince.
No, it wasn't a wince. And the guy that was looking, you asked the question, and he was actually going to go look for your brochure.
Yeah. So because this is why you talk to them, because I had been to the Charles Young, I think it's a national monument, and he was a Buffalo soldier at Fort Davis. There was a whole regiment of Buffalo soldiers that we had here, and I was like, did they ever cross paths? Because there wasn't a mention of Charles Young, which is another National Park Service unit location, and he's like, yeah, no, and he was explaining why Charles Young didn't make it out to the west. But I was like, and he's like, but we might have a brochure for Charles Young, because when I went to the Charles Young location, they was still new. They were not in the building yet. They were they had borrowed space in a library, and so he said, well, we might have a brochure. So we went off and did our thing going around. I was doing my junior ranger thing and everything. And I came back around, and sure enough, the other guy has said, hey, weren't you the one looking for the Charles Young thing? And they had the brochure for me. They went and found it. They found me a Charles Young brochure.
Yeah.
I was excited.
It takes so little. So these guys are a valuable resource. All your rangers, your state rangers, like we found out that the Davis Mountain Indian Lodge was its own state park, and that it was there before the Davis Mountain State Park. So, they've got all kinds of information to share with you.
Because I think about Charlie at the Davis Mountain State Park, and he was telling us about the Aoudad, the sheep. And learned so much about the sheep and how not good they've been to the,
Environment.
the environment. But it's like he brought it to life, and these rangers know how to bring this history to life.
Right. So you want to utilize those resources. Whatever park you go to, if they're there, ask them questions, because sometimes I think, people just think they're there to check you in, you make your payment, and they give you a little map, and they show you where you are, and they send you on your way. But, they are there to also impart knowledge.
Yeah, they really are. And speaking of knowledge, one of the other things that when you talk to the rangers or you're going through, think about, any of the visitor centers, and they've got usually, a place that you can go through and see, artifacts and things like that. One of the things I thought was really interesting that he was describing to us is that, because I had a question about why something wasn't included in the, I don't know, what do you call that? The museum, I guess.
Right.
I was asking why something wasn't covered, and he explained that, when these things are built, when these museums are built attached to these visitor centers or what have you, that they are built with the understanding first that, they have to hit bullets of information, because some people just breeze through them and don't really want to read a whole lot of stuff, right? So there are some people in your group that are going to be like that. But then they take it from the bullets and then they give you a little bit of text. So that's kind of the next level down for the people who want to read a little bit. But if you really want to know more information, you're going to have to dig deeper. And that's where, if you ever go to the NPS.gov website, there is so much information that they have. They have archives of stuff like from way back when.
It is a plethora of information.
Absolutely it is. And so when he described it that way, because again, something I was asking about wasn't reflected in the museum, and I was curious as to why not. And he had to remind me that, oh, by the way, this museum is probably, 30 years old, and they don't have the money to continually update it. So what they do is they update the information, whether it's on the website or in some of their other news and other articles that you can download. You'll find that information still within the NPS.gov, but maybe not actually in the museum. So you have ways to get additional information. And when he explained it to me, it's like, I can't expect it to always be perfect every time I go in to be updated, because it's not going to be, because there's no money to do that.
Well, and I think that's probably a good place for us to get ready to kind of close this trail mix out, because history is constantly changing. Not what happened. What happened is not changing, but we are changing, and we're learning more as we go along.
Our discovery never stops.
Right. So, what we thought was something that was static, when we discovered it and talked about it and put it in a museum, has now changed completely, because we've discovered other things and we've built on that knowledge.
Yep.
And so we need to keep in mind that when we go to these places, you might have gone 15 years ago, and all of a sudden there's completely different things there, and you're like, well, I thought it was this, or I thought it was that. But it's changed, just like we changed.
Just right. It's like we evolve. That's the history. The history itself didn't evolve, but our discovery of that history is what is evolving. And so it's keeping that fresh perspective.
Exactly.
It's kind of on us to make sure that we're continuing to question and ask, and then looking for those updated answers that I just think is fascinating in this world that we're in and where we're discovering it.
Yep, exactly. So I think that's covering everything.
I think that's it.
I will remind y'all that we have downloadable check sheets for you. They're free for your city hikes, short hikes, longer hikes. There is a link to state parks all over the U.S.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah. And if you like what you're hearing, if you're learning anything from us, if you think we're just funny and you're just watching to see what kind of goofs we're going to do, we don't mind.
Join us.
Join us, yeah. Hit the subscribe button.
We're here every week, 10 o'clock.
10 o'clock on Thursdays, Central Standard Time.
Central Time, yeah.
Yeah. Give us a thumbs up. Share, please, maybe. If you found anything interesting or funny, share it with your friends. Share it with anybody you think might be interested.
Ask questions. Ask us anything, because we'll look into it. We'll cover it in another Trail Mix edition. Again, we're going to do those every so often, just to catch up on comments and things and questions that are asked of us.
Yeah.
To bring it out to everybody.
So, yeah, just ask. Drop some comments down.
Drop it
like it's hot. Okay.
All right. Until next time, make sure you go hike your own hike.
Hike your own hike. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.